I'm attorney Howard Ankin, and I'm fortunate to be here today with Justice Cynthia Cobbs, and we're talking about her run for Illinois Supreme Court Justice. I think it's important for all of us this upcoming March 17th to be informed about all the candidates who are running for Supreme Court Justice, understanding their backgrounds, and understanding really who we're voting for. So Justice Cobbs, thanks very much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. Always happy to come and talk about the campaign and the court system.
So Justice Cobbs, I'm calling you Justice instead of calling you Judge. Give us a little civics lesson. Why is that?
Well, I think that along the way, judges who sit on the Appellate Court and the Supreme Court, which are the two reviewing courts in our state, captured the phrase or captured the title justice. But if you read the Illinois Constitution and even read statute, we're referred to as judges by law. So it's absolutely correct to call me a judge, although the common terminology used in the judiciary is on the reviewing court, we are justices. The only court system in which you hear the term judge is at the trial court level.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've been called justice since 2015, is that correct?
That is correct, since 2015.
But a long time before that, you were called judge.
A long time before that, I was called judge, and even a longer time before that, I was called director.
Interesting. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I grew up in the state of Maryland. I am the eighth born child of a Baptist minister and a mom who is 95 years young and who is actually working on my judicial campaign from Maryland. We were 9 children total. Went to all of my early education training in Howard County, Maryland. Went to a historically black college, Morgan State College, which is Morgan State University now in Baltimore. Married a great guy who was hired by Amico, which was headquartered here. And once we were married, I moved here and pursued my law degree. And got my law degree at Chicago, Kent. 1988 grad. I was very, very young when I got that law degree, in case anybody's still doing the man. And when I completed law school, applied to probably a zillion law firms, but at that time, 1988, they were not looking for necessarily women or women of color to serve in law firms. So I ended up in the appellate court. Still trying to figure out what I intended to do, because I'd also gotten my graduate degree in Maryland in clinical social work, and it's been 10 years in Maryland working with families, serving families who were had children in those families who were alleged to be abused and or neglected. Got that law degree here in Illinois. Didn't quite get back to serving children in the same way that I had thought, because while I was working on the appellate court, I got a call from Justice Freeman to come and be his judicial law clerk at the appellate court.
And then your first assignment as judge, you were appointed at the circuit court level, isn't that true?
That's right. So I had served as the Supreme Court's director of the Illinois courts. As you understand that the Supreme Court has 2 functions defined by the Constitution. The Constitution says the Supreme Court shall decide appeals, a percentage of appeals that are presented to them in the form of petition for leave to appeal, but the Supreme Court also is mandated to administer and supervise the entire court system in the state of Illinois.
And you were a circuit court judge from 2011 to 2014?
In 2011 I was appointed. 2014 I ran to keep that seat in the circuit court. So I was a circuit court judge from 2011 through 2014.
When you were elected, did you hear the same type of cases that you heard when you were first appointed, or did the type of cases that you heard change?
No. So any judge, or most judges, when they are first appointed to the circuit court, cut their teeth in traffic court. And I loved cutting my teeth in traffic court, because traffic court is the place where you get to interface with so many different people and personalities. I don't know of anyone that I've ever met in my lifetime who hasn't at least gotten one traffic ticket,
right,
and who hasn't at least tried to go to traffic court to fight it. So I started in traffic court just like everybody else, although it was believed that since I had been the director of the Illinois courts that I could say wherever I wanted to sit. Well, where I wanted to sit was where the chief judge assigned me, and that was traffic court. So I sat in traffic court, did some time there hearing cases, and then I sat also in forcible entry and detainer, which is eviction court. And then I sat in civil juries for a while, and those are mostly subrogation cases. Until 2014, at which time I got a call from then Justice Charles Freeman, for whom I clerked, who said, I believe you would be good on the appellate court. You've clerked on the appellate court for me. You've clerked at the Supreme Court level, which I did for 7.5 years. And you've managed the court system. We think you'd be a great appellate court judge. And so I was appointed there as well.
So after you had a real broad spectrum, like you really understood what people were going through from the beginning, even some people whose only experience they have with the court system is going to traffic court, but you heard it all, and then you went to the appellate court.
That's absolutely correct.
When you were now sitting on the appellate court, what kind of cases do you hear there?
Well, you hear every kind of case in the appellate court. So you hear criminal, you hear civil, you hear cases that come from administrative review. Our system of courts is set up such that the intermediate reviewing court hears every appeal, because if you lose in the trial court, if you lose at the administrative level, you may appeal as a matter of right. So the appellate court must hear every appeal that is properly filed and over which we have jurisdiction. The Supreme Court then will decide whether that case merits the attention of the Supreme Court, whether there is a conflict in the law, whether the law is unsettled, whether there is a case that has no law that has been settled. Those are the types of cases, the most complex, or the cases that have not had settled law, that the Supreme Court will hear, a percentage of them. I think if you look back at the administrative summary of the courts, every year the director of the courts, and that used to be me, would file an annual report of the Illinois courts. In that annual report is a statistical summary for every court, every trial court, every district of the appellate court, and on the Supreme Court as well. The statistical report outlines how many cases were filed at every court and how many cases were disposed and how. At the Supreme Court level in 2017, I believe there were some 17,000 petitions for leave to appeal. And I think that less than 100 of those cases actually resulted in a written disposition by the Supreme Court.
How did your background in helping to administer the courts help you when you got to the appellate court level, as far as that volume of weeding through 17,000 cases to get to the 100 that were most pertinent to be heard?
I'm extraordinarily organized. I'm extraordinarily structured in my work. As the director of the Illinois courts, you are working collaboratively and closely with the Supreme Court in assisting them in administering the court. It requires absolutely good analytical skills, both legal and administrative. It requires great organizational skills and great communication skills. I got my chance to develop a lot of that because I'm also a clinical social worker, so I hear a lot.
And let me ask you this, Justice. How does your background in social work, how does that come to bear or help you in your work as a judge or justice?
I think quite well. I am always amazed at how able I am to really relate to individuals who stand before me. Now, without question, as a judge, you are bound to follow the law. But no judge, I believe, should just simply blindly or coldly follow the law. You need to understand family dynamics. You need to understand human behavior. It helps tremendously when you're listening to the facts of a particular case. It helps in determining or assessing credibility. It helps in understanding the nature of a story. It helps in understanding the issues that are confronting individuals. I have patience. I have the ability to sit and to tolerate and to listen and to unravel and to be able to empathize and sympathize with the individuals who are sitting there.
Justice, what I'm hearing from you is you have a broad breadth of background, both from organizational skills and from hearing a variety of cases in your background. You have empathy for people that come before you. What else is there that you'd like to let people know about why you should be the next Justice of the Supreme Court?
So, other than my experience, which is broad, there will be no other candidate who is running for Supreme Court who will bring the administrative piece. There is no other individual who is running who has sat as the director of the Illinois courts and worked collaboratively with the court in satisfying its mandate to oversee the court system. No other candidate running will have worked on as many Supreme Court opinions as I have. I'm now a justice on the appellate court with my own law clerks, and I have my own body of work, and I get to say that I'm the authoring justice. But no other candidate will be able to boast that they've done that work at the Supreme Court level or at the Supreme Court level in either administering the branch of government or in disposing of cases. I am unique in that way.
And Justice, if you're elected, how long does your post last for?
In Illinois, each level of our court system has a term. It's a 10-year term for the Appellate Court and a 10-year term for the Supreme Court. The Circuit Court has a 6-year term. After your initial election at any level of our court system, you stand for retention after you have completed that term. So 10 years is the initial term, and then you would stand for retention.
For certain people who vote, but they vote in the general elections, but they may not feel as important to vote in the primaries, especially when it comes to voting for judges and justices in the state of Illinois, voting in the primary is very important.
It's critical. Voting in the primary is critical. Again, ordinarily in our primary elections in Cook County, because we are a largely Democratic county, generally in the primary there are largely Democrats who are running against Democrats.
Justice, outside of the work that you do at the courthouse, what's some of the charitable work that you do? Or what are some of the things that you do outside the courthouse?
I do a couple things outside the courthouse because my background in social work doesn't allow me not to do some things. I am still very much interested, engaged, and involved in the human dynamic. And so I serve on 2 boards. One board is the Lawyers Lend a Hand Board, which is a program, not-for-profit program that provides grant funding to programs that do mentoring, provide mentoring services to at-risk youth here in the city of Chicago. As a piece or component of the Lawyers Lend a Hand work, we tutor. So on every Tuesday evening, we bring down to the Chicago Bar Association about 45 African-American children who attend the Montessori Inglewood School for tutoring.
I wish you all the luck in your quest to be Supreme Court Justice, and I really appreciate you being here today and taking your time to talk to me about what you're doing.
Thank you so very much. It's been my pleasure.